finally awake.
My bad. Here's a crazy conservative on TV screaming about the dangers of video games.
There's a Vaporeon that spawned right there, so everyone's running.
TSM cement themselves as the greatest team North America has ever seen.
That was gaming before 2025, to many a golden age. But what is it like now? Let's start with the bad. There's no point in beating around the bush. By far the worst thing about gaming in 2025 is microtransactions, and in many cases, their aggressive and predatory implementation. They feel slimy and gross, and some of the worst offending games have some seriously crazy pricing in them. A prime example of ridiculous microtransactions are those in Valorant, where skin bundles can approach $100. But I don't think this monetization model is inherently bad for the player. Some of the most popular games in the world are completely free to play, and entirely propped up by cosmetics. Games like Fortnite and Rocket League won't cost you anything to get started. You can play them indefinitely, or at least give them a try without having to invest. If you stay long enough and want to support the developer, it is completely up to you whether you want to participate in their marketplace. If you want to support the developer of this Oh, look at him go. Yeah, please subscribe. I recently tried out Marvel Rivals because some of my friends were playing. I was hesitant and unexcited by how it looked, and now that I've tried it, I don't think the game is for me. If I had needed to purchase it first, I would have skipped it and never known for sure. Of course, some games are out here trying to double or triple dip. Diablo 4 at launch cost $70, spit out a $40 expansion pack after 16 months, has battle passes during each season, and expensive cosmetics in the in-game store. In cases like this, it is clear that the publisher and/or developer view the player as an ATM and are trying to wring you dry. This is really made worse by the fact that unless you go out of your way to buy physical copies of games that don't depend on servers, you don't really own your games anymore. You can't lend them to friends, or bring them to your cousin's house with an extra controller to play split screen. Something that is worse about gaming these days that flies a little under the radar is the prevalence of early access combined with games that are terrible at release in one way or another. In the best case scenario, players are guinea pigs while devs iron out what are sometimes seriously game-breaking problems. The worst case is a publisher managing a quick rug pull to make money on a game that might best be described as vaporware. The silver lining is that these usually cause a big uproar in the community and are very damaging to the reputation of the developer. From way back when I was just a kid, I used to play Madden religiously every summer while the NFL season was approaching. Years ago, I even dabbled in the Ultimate Team mode and loved the idea of putting together a custom team made from unique player cards with different themes that came from challenges during the season. Unfortunately, it got less and less friendly to no money spent players, even though I already paid $60 for the game, and reflects the overall downward trend in the quality of sports simulators. The centralization of licensing means there isn't competition across much of the genre. Players want to use famous and recognizable athletes in these games, and not having them puts any non-licensed game at a distinct disadvantage. Without another title to challenge for supremacy, fans are often locked into just one game, and, especially in the case of EA, it means they don't even really need to try to sell it. I'll never buy another EA Sports game again, and I'm sure I'm not alone. $60 once a year for a glorified roster update, or worse, a total reset on all the card packs you bought in Ultimate Team, is absolutely not worth it. Here is a list of the best-selling games in the United States in 2024. Maybe I am alone with how I feel about EA.
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly.
Number 1 on the chart is yet another Call of Duty, and most of the games that follow have a number or year at the end. The majority of them are sports games. The point is that with no exceptions, the top-selling games of last year are all either sequels or based on an existing intellectual property. That's not inherently bad, and it's just 1 year of evidence. It's safer for developers to be working on something that companies know will sell ahead of time. The same strategy exists in film, where the people making investment decisions are less willing to commit large sums of cash to get new ideas up and running because of the risk of failure. It's a lot simpler to release sequels and remakes than it is to get people people excited about something totally new. Maybe you disagree, but the top seller list doesn't lie. Another way that gaming is worse is in competitive leagues and tournaments. We are in the midst of an esports winter, a moniker that describes the withdrawal of advertisers and investors from competitive scenes. We are a long way out from late 2020, when TSM signed Sword Art to a 2-year, $6 million contract. For comparison, the collective bargaining agreement that also began that year in the NFL looks like this. A support player in the LCS was making twice as much money as a 10-year vet on a minimum deal in one of the most profitable sports leagues in the world. We were due for a correction.
If you don't write checks, how do you pay these guys?
Straight cash, homie.
I love competitive gaming, and the idea of the best players in the world focusing on their craft to the same degree as professional athletes. It's possible that we will never see esports make a mainstream crossover, but I'll stay hopeful that it happens someday. Maybe this is an unpopular idea, but I also think that the glut of guides of all kinds is an overall negative for games today. Oftentimes, even before a game officially comes out, there is a surge of YouTube videos in the feed, alongside Twitch streams, from people with early access. In that early phase, single-player games are solved, routes are refined, and walkthroughs are published.
Jeff, guys, where are we putting Jeff? Are we putting Jeff in D? Maybe this is like personal bias. Oh my god, I hate this motherfucker on my team.
Competitive games formulate their metas incredibly fast, aided by content creation, and the early fun of a new game is quickly stamped out by people who only want to play the strongest characters and strategies to win games. If you don't conform, you're trolling. If you don't participate and complete the game within that opening window, it can feel as if everyone has already moved on and the value of the game has diminished. I'm guilty of doing this too. Back in the day, I browsed my fair share of ASCII guides, but the speed at which the wonder of a new game experience is crystallized into an optimized, step-by-step procedure is a shame. Let's be honest here. I've played video games for over 30 years. I haven't seen it all, but over that time, I have seen a lot. I was too late for the traditional arcade experience of Pac-Man and for Atari. My very first game was the original Mario Bros. On my parents' NES. The first game I loved was Tecmo Super Bowl. What that means is that my views on a lot of this are tainted by nostalgia. I was the exact target demographic for the original Pokemon craze in the late 1900s. I spent my teenage years playing split-screen Halo with my brothers, and listening to, but never participating in, foul trash talk on Xbox Live.
You sleep rather soundly for a murderer. That's good.
My favorite games ever all come from that time period. That's not a coincidence. I was young and carefree, able to commit more time and energy into those titles. Halo 2 and Oblivion anchored themselves in my own mental pantheon. By this point, about 20 years later, I'd be shocked if anything could unseat them from the top of my list. Maybe that's a me problem, or maybe that's just part of what it means to age as a gamer. A lot of people are like that with music, and feel that bands and songs from their youth are untouchable, and always will be. It could just be a natural symptom of experiences from when the brain is at its most pliable. If you're driven by nostalgia, and that's possible if you're an elder gamer, it's fair to wonder if there is any game that can capture a similar feeling not just in 2025, but at any point in the future. It doesn't help that a lot of games today feel like they're built to capitalize on shorter attention spans to get players addicted and spending their money quickly. Fortnite is unique since it became a cultural juggernaut, but it was significantly better early in its life when it was more simplistic and focused. There are so many things to spend V-Bucks on in that game now, and looking at the menus feels like being pulled in 1,000 different directions. If you had told me when I was 8 years old that someday I'd be able to play a game where you adventure around the world and see Pokemon wandering around the environment, I might have died from excitement. It's so close to a realistic experience that embodies the soul of the game. But Scarlet and Violet were a buggy, glitchy, barren mess. It's a shame that the ideal evolution of such an iconic franchise turned out to be more vapid than enchanting. So yes, it's true that I'm older now and looking backwards with rose-tinted glasses. There were plenty of absolute duds from back in my day too. Remember Pirates vs. Ninjas Dodgeball? Me either. They all just faded from memory and left only the bright spots in their wake. Even if I have to sometimes remind myself, I'm looking forward to gaming this year. It's not a lost cause, and there are things to be excited about. The list of upcoming events in gaming for 2025 is full of a lot of fluff. I'm sorry, date everything. It isn't you, it's me. The most exciting things in the pipeline pipeline are the Switch 2 and Borderlands 4. But I'm making a commitment. I have never played any Dark Souls game, and none of the Souls-like games either. I'm going to play Elden Ring for the first time so that I can pick up Night Rain and understand what's happening. What are you most looking forward to in gaming for this year? Leave a comment down below. It can be easy to focus on the negatives, but there are reasons to be optimistic. For one thing, the variety in the experiences provided by games now is insane. The dating sim genre doesn't do anything for me, but someone out there is playing. We've seen so many different styles of game have their time in the sun, and that's awesome. The classics are still doing well, but now there are survival horrors, visual novels, a growth in roguelikes, bullet hells, and popular card games. If you can't find something that interests you, you aren't looking hard enough. It doesn't matter how you want to play. Grinding competitive ladders, relaxing into a casual strategy game, blowing off steam in a hack and slash, or making a factory, maybe even by exploiting your pals. There's something for everyone. Exclusivity is on its last legs, which is a huge boon for players. When games are available on everything, it stops the player counts from being fractured into subgroups or locking out some players entirely.
Soon the great journey shall begin. But when it does, the weight of your heresy will stay your feet, and you shall be left behind.
There are plenty of exceptions to this. Nintendo is easily the worst offender, but in general, games are more frequently multi-platform, which gives players more choice. You can play a majority of games the way you want and where you want. They aren't for playing new games, but apps like RetroArch and devices like the Miyoo and Anbernic have made playing classic games more feasible. You can load up one of your favorite old games from the past on your phone, computer, and even on your Apple TV. The ratio between hours of entertainment to game storage size is incredible. Lately, for an injection of nostalgia, I've been playing Pokemon Emerald Sea Glass. It's a ROM hack where someone has heavily edited the source code of the game to add quality of life changes, new moves, different encounters, and map updates. Game mods themselves are another fantastic example of a way in which gaming is better now than ever before. When I was young, modded was a bad word. It meant someone gaining an unfair advantage and cheating, but some of the best known names in gaming began life as mods, particularly Dota 2 and PUBG. Nowadays, mods have both defined some games and kept others alive way longer than you might expect. Hi Skyrim. Many of the popular games for mods are things that I haven't played, but I'm interested to see what comes out of the official Hogwarts Legacy mod tools that came out recently. I touched on it earlier when I talked about microtransactions, but I firmly believe that free-to-play games are an improvement in many ways over the traditional method of monetization. This might be heresy, I know, but as long as a game is truly free-to-play and not pay to win, I'm perfectly fine with it. Set aside the games that have gone overboard and the concept that many players lack impulse control. If you're judicious about the type of microtransactions you spend on, there are plenty of great experiences to be had for a frugal player. Players who wail on a game, spending large amounts of money, subsidize it for others. The most significant way that gaming is better today than it ever used to be is how mainstream it has become. Games aren't just for nerds anymore. There's almost nobody metaphorically clutching their pearls on TV about the harm being done to the youth. People everywhere, from all different lifestyles, can get into games without feeling out of place. My wife, who had only ever played The Sims until last year, played all the way through Stray. She was disappointed when she saw the trailer for the movie Flow and found out it wasn't also a cat game. At times, it can be hard to see how gaming has improved. There's a lot of slop that ends up being popular because it's easy and familiar. Don't let that get you down. I don't care what genre you like. I don't care whether you like single player, co-op, or player versus player. I don't care if graphical fidelity is your top priority. Dig into communities that enjoy the same games that you do, and there will be great suggestions for other things to check out. All you have to do is look. Games are both better and worse today than they have ever been before. If you're playing them, enjoy them.